Some stars burn so bright they seem invincible. Robin Williams wasn't just a man. He was a force, a whirlwind of energy, laughter, and humanity. He could lift a room with a whisper, or devastate it with silence, but behind the brilliance was a storm. This is not just the story of a man who made the world laugh. It is the story of a soul that gave everything, even when it cost him everything. Who was Robin Williams? The answer is far more human and far more heartbreaking than most of us ever knew. Robin McLaurin Williams was born on July 21, 1951, in Chicago, Illinois. His father, Robert, was a senior executive at Ford Motor Company. His mother, Lori, a former model, had a sharp wit and a gift for storytelling. It's from her that Robin would inherit the sparkle in his voice. He was an only child for much of his early life, a quiet, observant boy. Shy is a word no one would later associate with Robin Williams. But in those early years, he was painfully reserved, often retreating into his own world of voices, characters, and imagined adventures. His father's work moved the family to the affluent Detroit suburb of Bloomfield Hills. Robin was enrolled at the prestigious Detroit Country Day School. He excelled, not academically at first, but in imagination. He found joy in the absurd, mimicking his teachers, impersonating people he met. Yet even in this world of privilege, he often felt isolated. A fat kid with glasses, as he'd later describe himself. His escape, comedy, characters, theater, a room full of toys, and no one to play with but himself. So, he played them all. In his late teens, the Williams family moved west, to Marin County, California. There, the shy boy from Michigan began to bloom. He joined the drama club at Redwood High School. And on stage, something clicked. Robin wasn't just pretending anymore. He was transforming. Comedy wasn't a shield. It was a weapon, a way to fight back against loneliness, a way to be seen. After graduation, Robin studied political science briefly, before dropping it all to chase the stage. He enrolled at the College of Marin, where his performances began drawing serious attention. But even that wasn't enough. In 1973, he earned a scholarship to one of the most elite acting programs in the world, Juilliard. At Juilliard, Robin was one of only 2 students accepted into the advanced program that year. The other? A young man named Christopher Reeve. They would remain lifelong friends until tragedy took them both. Even in those halls of elite talent, Robin stood out. His professors told him he had a gift, a genius for improvisation, but they worried. "He's too fast for his own good," one teacher remarked. But that speed, that fire, would soon make him unstoppable. San Francisco in the mid-70s wasn't just a city. It was a crucible for a cultural explosion. And in smoky clubs tucked into corners of the city, a young Robin Williams lit the match. After leaving Juilliard early, on the advice of his mentors, who said there was little more they could teach him, Robin returned to the West Coast and dove headfirst into stand-up. What emerged on those stages wasn't just funny. It was volcanic. He didn't tell jokes. He became them. One moment he was a Shakespearean drunk, the next a space alien. Characters poured out of him like he was channeling a dozen souls at once. The crowd couldn't catch their breath, and neither could he. You couldn't follow him. You didn't want to go on after Robin. He'd blow the roof off before you even hit the mic. Talent agents took notice, then television producers, and in 1978, the breakthrough came. On a show no one saw coming, Happy Days. Robin was cast as a one-off gag character, Mork from Ork, a zany alien in rainbow suspenders. But something happened. Robin didn't just perform the scene. He reinvented it. He improvised. He danced. He soared. Audiences were stunned. Network execs were floored. Mork was spun off into his own show, Mork and Mindy. It became a cultural phenomenon overnight. Robin Williams, the erratic alien with a heart, was now a household name. But fame didn't just knock. It crashed through the door. By the early 1980s, Robin was everywhere. He starred in Popeye, dove into more stand-up, and continued building a brand unlike anyone else. But fame brought pressure. The world wanted more of Robin, more energy, more madness, more genius. And he gave it, all of it. You'd swear he had a generator plugged into his spine, one fan said. But inside, Robin was burning fast, too fast, and cracks were beginning to form. He battled exhaustion, anxiety, addiction. He once joked, "Cocaine is God's way of telling you you're making too much money." But behind the laugh was a cry, a plea he couldn't always voice. Even as the world laughed harder, Robin was starting to break inside. But his greatest performances were still ahead, and so were his greatest roles. Few actors can make you cry, and seconds later, have you laughing through the tears. Robin Williams made it an art form. Every role, no matter how wild or gentle, bore his fingerprint, unfiltered humanity. In 1989, Robin stepped into a classroom, and into one of the most iconic roles of his career. John Keating, the unorthodox English teacher in Dead Poets Society, wasn't a comedian. He was a whisperer of souls. "Carpe diem," he told his students. "Seize the day." And when he stood on that desk, asking them to look at the world differently, he wasn't just acting. That line, that moment, you would echo for generations. Robin wasn't performing. He was reminding us how to live. 3 years later, Robin took animation somewhere it had never been. As the genie in Disney's Aladdin, he didn't just voice a character. He transformed the medium. Over 16 hours of improvised dialogue, dozens of impressions. Animators said they couldn't keep up. Robin's genie was electric, fast, funny, and full of heart. And beneath all that power was a voice that made kids believe in magic. In Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin gave us something truly rare. A performance that was riotously funny and painfully real. Under all the prosthetics was a father, desperate to stay connected to his children. The laughter never overshadowed the ache. "The voice was silly," he once said, "but the love to it was real." And then came Good Will Hunting, a role that didn't rely on voices or manic energy, just stillness, truth, and depth. As therapist Sean Maguire, Robin held the screen with restraint. He let the silence speak. And in that silence, he won an Oscar. Not for being funny, but for being real. The Fisher King, a man shattered by grief. Awakenings. The Gentle Nurse Who Believes. Patch Adams, the clown who heals with laughter. Jumanji, the boy trapped in a man's body, lost in a world he didn't create. Each role, a reflection. Each performance, a piece of him. He played doctors, teachers, robots, aliens, and genies. But at the core of every character was Robin. Not the performer, the human, searching for connection and offering it to millions. But even as the world saw him as a beacon of joy, Robin himself was often facing a storm. For those who knew him best, there was always a contrast. The man who made the world laugh was often the one crying when the world went quiet. Robin Williams lived in extremes, emotionally, mentally, artistically. His brain moved faster than most could keep up with. And while that speed gave him brilliance, it also brought chaos. The 1980s brought fame, and the temptations that came with it. Cocaine, alcohol. The same tools many comedians of the era used to numb the pressure. Robin used too. He made light of it on stage, but offstage, the addiction was real and consuming. In 1982, the sudden death of his close friend, comedian John Belushi, hit Robin hard. He had been with Belushi just hours before his fatal overdose. That was the wake-up call. Robin checked into rehab. He got clean. Robin married Valerie Velarde in 1978, and they had a son, Zachary. But his career, and the toll of his inner world, strained his relationships. He married twice more, fathering 2 more children, Zelda and Cody. By all accounts, Robin adored his children, but he often felt he was failing them. The need to work, to create, to be everything to everyone, left little space for himself. After 20 years of sobriety, Robin relapsed in the early 2000s. "It's just a sip," he told himself, but the sip became a slide. He went back to rehab, voluntarily, before things could spiral. And again he fought, again he got clean. Robin was always on, in green rooms, on set, even at home. His gift, the ability to shift, joke, improvise, became his armor. But armor can become heavy, especially when no one sees the weight beneath it. Friends would later say, Robin would make you laugh, just so you wouldn't ask if he was okay. For every personal battle, there was an act of kindness. Robin donated millions quietly. He visited hospitals without cameras. He supported fellow comedians, funded scholarships, comforted strangers. He knew what pain felt like, and wanted no one else to carry it alone. But even as he made peace with his past, a new, darker challenge was approaching. One even Robin Williams couldn't joke his way through. In the final years of his life, Robin Williams slowed down. Not because he wanted to, but because something, deep inside, was beginning to change. In 2013, friends and family began to notice subtle signs. He'd forget lines. He'd lose focus. His hands trembled. Robin, the man whose mind had once raced faster than light, was now struggling to hold a thought. He was still funny, still brilliant, but there was a fog creeping in and no one, not even Robin, knew why. Doctors initially suspected Parkinson's disease. The diagnosis explained the tremors, but not the anxiety, not the paranoia, not the terrifying feeling that he was disappearing from the inside. He would later describe it as having chemical warfare inside my brain, but he still smiled, he still performed, and he still tried to make everyone else okay. In his last film, Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, Robin played Teddy Roosevelt. Cast and crew noticed his timing was off, his energy lower, but he was trying, fighting. No one knew that this would be his final curtain. It's time for your next adventure. On the morning of August 11th, 2014, Robin Williams was found dead in his home in Paradise Cay, California. He had taken his own life. The world stood still. In an instant, millions felt the absence of a man who had made them laugh, cry, and believe. Months later, the truth emerged. Robin had not been battling Parkinson's. He had Lewy body dementia, one of the most devastating and misdiagnosed brain diseases. His brain had been under siege. It explained the confusion, the fear, the fog, and worst of all, he had known something was deeply wrong, but he didn't know what. And so the man who gave so much was gone. But his story wasn't over. After the laughter faded, after the applause ceased, the world asked, what now? How do we mourn someone who gave so much and asked for so little? Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Fans, friends, strangers, presidents. They all said the same thing. He was more than a performer. He was light. Disney aired a simple tribute. The genie disappearing into the stars, and millions cried. Because Robin wasn't just in movies. He was in living rooms, hospital rooms, classrooms. He was the voice that made sick children forget their pain. The face that reminded lonely people they weren't alone. After his death, Robin's widow, Susan, made it her mission to educate the world about Lewy body dementia. She launched Robin's Wish, a documentary to tell the truth he never got to learn. His final battle wasn't weakness. It wasn't giving up. It was a fight no one knew he was in, and he fought it bravely until the very end. Robin Williams held up a mirror to the human experience. He showed us our joy and our pain, our absurdity and our brilliance. He was never just one thing, because none of us are. His voice still echoes. In the genie who taught us freedom, in the teacher who told us to seize the day, in the father who crossed any line, any boundary, to love his children. He gave us his madness, his magic, his mind. And through it all, he reminded us that laughter is not the absence of pain. It is how we survive it.